Today I'm going to be showing you how I made this junk journal out of just a single paper bag. So if you've got one of these lying around, join me and let's make a journal. So I really had to zoom out to get this shot because this is quite a large paper bag. But the first step is to cut along both sides of the bag as you see here. So where there's the fold in the side, you just want to follow that all the way along each side of the bag. So essentially we're going to open up the bag to start working on it, and then also cut along either side of the bottom as I'm showing you here. That way then we have one piece that we can lay flat like this. And I'm going to do a concertina fold into the middle of the bag as so. So I'm using what was originally the bottom of my bag almost as my guide for how wide the pages are going to be, and then following it back and forth until I run out of that side of the bag. So how many folds you'll do will depend on the size of your bag. So for me it was 3, so I folded it once left, then once right, and then left again here as you can see, and it left me with a little bit of an excess. So all I did was I chopped that off, and then I also removed the handles. So put those to one side and we will come back to how we can add that to our journal for just a fun little like handle if you ever want to carry your journal around as a purse, I suppose. So as you can see there, I've trimmed off the edge, and then I'm just going to repeat and do the exact same thing here on the other side. So I'm removing those handles just because they're a little bit bulky in the way that we're folding, and then I'm going to concertina fold the other side. So you can see here, this is another way that you can fold it backwards and forwards, and the side flaps there on the left and the right, I've just left those on because they will eventually become interesting folds within our journal pages, so don't worry too much about those. And then as you can see, I'm just trimming off the excess that was on the other side of the paper bag so that I have fairly even pages on both sides. So before I get into the binding, this is how the folds should look on the paper bag on one side and then on the other. So what we're going to do is fold this in half, and you might need to press just on the edge a little bit because obviously it's not used to folding in that way, and you should end up with something that looks like this. And what we're going to do is just do our binding first. So I'm just going to use a needle and embroidery thread and do a simple 3-hole stitch pamphlet binding, where you just make 3 holes like this, one in the middle, one towards the top and one towards the bottom. And then you'll want to start from the center, take your needle in and pull the thread through, making sure to leave a little bit at the end there so we can tie it at the end. Then you'll want to turn your paper bag over, and then we're going to go either the top or the bottom, it doesn't matter which one you start with. Take your needle back into the inside here and then go all the way across to the remaining hole, pull your thread through that one as well. Turn it back over once more, and we're going to go in through the center so that we end where we started, and that way then we're able to pull it nice and tight. Sometimes I pull the threads sort of the opposite way to how I've been sewing them, just so that they are nice and secure, and then tie it with a few knots to make sure that nothing comes loose, and then use your scissors to trim off the excess, and there we have our binding. Now what I'm going to do is then cut at the top and the bottom of some of these pages, because as you'll see they're all joined together. So what I'm going to do is take my scissors and just cut along either the top or the bottom all the way through this journal, and this will reveal our pages. So you can see here, just taking my scissors and gently going along the top here. So some of the folds are on the top, some are on the bottom, so just make sure like this, you can see how the journal will open up, and there is one of the side panels that's now become a opening for our journal. So all you'll want to do is just carry on, like I said, throughout the entire journal and make sure that all of the pages are opened up nicely so that we can see what we're working with. Now, when it comes to this journal shape, you could of course finish there, and the landscape is a fun journal size to use, but we are going to continue working in this, and I'm actually going to make it more of a portrait size journal and incorporate some more like folds into the pages. And this is just a fun way to have some like extra journaling space and room when it comes to working in this journal. So you can see here there's all the different pages and the different textures and sort of the way that the pages fold out. And so what I'm going to do is then take each of my pages and I'm going to fold them inwards. And you'll see that in some cases, like this page, we end up with one that has a fold on the outside, and then the reverse, we have this page that has the extra fold on the inside of the page. So it just totally depends on which way you fold it. So you'll see this one, I folded it left instead of right, and then that just means that the page fold opens up in a different way. So you can totally choose which way you want your folds to go in your journal and which way you want the pages then to open up as you're using them. So you might want the extra pages to all be on the right hand side, or you might prefer it on the left hand side. But I'm just going to go through and fold all of the pages within this journal here. And I really love the different tones of the brown paper bag here, because there's a warmer tone on one side and then a cooler tone on the other side, which I think is really fun, especially when it comes to these folded pages, because you have that two-tone look, and I think it will make some really nice bases for journal pages once it comes to actually working within this journal. So you'll see here I just end on the last one by folding this inwards, and this becomes the cover. So you'll see here it's a little bit chunky, so what I'm then going to do is actually remove some of the pages that I folded in. So I'm just going to sort of go through it and see where I want some sort of single pages to be, and then of course I won't waste these offcuts. I can use those within other projects, but I'm just going to tear some of these out, and this is just so that the journal doesn't get too bulky, because obviously we don't want it to be super chunky before we've even added any ephemera into this. So if you know that you like to use like a lot of papers and washi and ephemera, and that your journals get really chunky, you might want to take out a few more pages here just to give yourself enough space, especially as some of the pages have those interesting folds to them. So you'll obviously want to allow for space for that, but it's totally customizable how you want to approach making the paper bag journal. And I'm just flipping through here to show you how my base pages are looking once I've decided which ones to take out, and I've got that difference then between some pages fold out and some pages don't, and I think that gives a really interesting effect to the overall journal. So grab those handles that we took off the bag earlier, and we're going to add them as little mini handles for our journal. So this doesn't have like a functional purpose other than just looking kind of fun, and I think it's just a nice nod to the fact that this journal was made from a paper bag. I'm not saying that I'm going to start like carrying this around with the handles, but I just think it's a fun effect for being the paper bag journal, the origins almost of what this journal was. So I trimmed them down slightly and just used some tape here to attach them to the inside of one of my covers, and then I used an offcut from the paper bag to glue down a strip here just to cover the washi tape, so that kind of tidies things up a bit, makes it look a bit nicer, and also just adds another sort of secure layer for this so that the handles don't come off the journal as I'm using it. And I actually decided to trim this fold out slightly because I was feeling like it was a little bit too bulky. So you'll see here I just cut along one of the sides and just made it slightly smaller. So you can do the same principle with any of the fold outs, the different pages within this journal. If you want to have slimmer pages, you can definitely chop them and have them be however you would like. I think it will be really fun for this if I sewed on the top and the bottom, and you could make this then a pocket for the inside cover of a journal, but I've just left it for now whilst I decide what I'd like to do with it. And then for the reverse one, I actually just glued the whole thing down, so you can also do this and it sort of helps to reinforce the cover in particular. So I think it's a really good opportunity to do that for the back page of your journal, just so that you've got a bit more sort of sturdiness to that cover. And then here's the second handle, so I'm just lining it up to make sure that it matches with the one on the front, and then I'm going to trim that down to size and then attach it to the back cover in exactly the same way with the washi tape, and then adding that extra piece of paper on top just to tidy everything up. Okay, now comes the fun part. We're going to decorate the cover of this journal. So I actually had a few of these. They're not like scrapbook papers, but they've got like imagery on them, and they were just the perfect size for this journal. So I was just choosing which one I wanted to use for the front of this journal, and I ended up landing on this mint one just because I think the colour scheme worked well with the paper bag. And I really liked all of the detail on that piece. So I just glued it down onto the center of the paper bag, and then I actually came in with some stamping. So I just used my VersaFine sepia ink to match in with the color scheme that I've got going on now, and then just used a few stamps to add some like patterns. So I wasn't doing them perfectly, it was more sort of a bit of a background, and just to help the piece on the front not feel like it was completely just like stuck on there randomly. So it sort of helped to blend everything in and gave it a little bit more of a grungy effect, I think, as well, which is perfect for this journal. So I didn't go overboard, but there was just a few different stamps that I used, and then I also added some details here with my Uniball Signo in white, and that is the finished journal. So I hope you enjoyed watching the creation of this journal, and maybe you want to try out one for yourself. Go and find a paper bag and make a journal from it. It's really fun, and I can't wait to use this and see what I create within these pages.